if you co-host me as as well, where is Kofri? He's gone.
Let me see if I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do that.
co-host
No,
now.
Scoffer has to be the one. There you go.
Okay,
Hi,
I
Felix.
can help let people in if I see them.
Okay. Katrina is also joining. Hi, Felix. Welcome. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Okay,
Katrina. Sorry, all. It looks like we're all rushing home to kind of hop online, so we'll give maybe a couple more minutes and then let's start it off just so we don't lose too much time. Mr. President, do you want to start off the introduction and then we can hop into our webinar? By the time you're done with your introduction, we should be able to start.
No, we will welcome. I think Felix is a non-ICF member. We want to welcome him specifically, and also Katrina for joining our monthly webinar. Today we are looking at navigating coaching careers in corporates, in other fields, and a lot of us are coaches within existing faculties or specialties. So we have one of our own who slammed on coaching and coaching, kidnapped and grabbed him ever since he's not looked back. So I will leave it over to Biju and Frank to do us the honors. And this is recording and also live on YouTube. Thank you.
Great, thank you, President Scofrey. Frank, so you are our main speaker for today. So let's go ahead and start our conversation. For those who don't know you, whether on YouTube Live or within our webinar, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
All right, thank you, Biju. In talking a little bit about myself, you want the full version or you want the abridged version? There are two types.
Fair enough.
Right.
You can start with the full version, whatever will help you
Okay,
transition
abridged
into our
version, no
topic.
problem. Right. So I'll manage. Right. So my name is Frank Oridu Yabua. I started my career as a pharmacist with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science, or those times it was UST, University of Science and Technology. So I practiced as a pharmacist with the police hospital for some time, and I moved into private sales, pharmaceutical sales, yeah. Also for some years, and went into food as well for some time, and that pushed me into marketing, full scale marketing. So I did the marketing professional course with the UKCM UK, and the marketing also pushed me into banking. At that time, the merchant bank was moving into retail banking, so they needed marketers. So I was kind of dragged into banking, and then I added the ACIB banking as well. So I've been in banking for the past, I would say, close to 20 years. 5 years with Merchant Bank, and then about 15 years with Stanbic Bank, where I work now as a manager in operations, overseeing one of the operational units at the head office there. So that is the background uh, for me. And I think that I moved into coaching, I would say, per chance. I'm having discussions with one of our coaches, and then I expressed interest in coaching, and then she directed me to the accredited schools, and that brought me to where I am now, and I've seen not to look back, and I've enjoyed my time being a coach for the past, I would say, 4 or 5 years now.
Okay, that's great. All right. Thank you for that background. Now, with all this experience you've had, right, in the corporate space, obviously you are, settled in that corporate space. You're very familiar with it, and you're also doing coaching, which means you're doing both at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
which, I think a few of us within the chapter and a lot of coaches do the regular 9 to 5 and the coaching as well. How are you managing that?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I would say interesting. I would say challenging. It's kind of interesting. I was fortunate, in fact, at the time that I decided to do my program, my organization, Stanbic Bank, decided to sponsor me for the coaching course. So it is kind of whether you are a coach for the organization or you are outside the organization, because although they sponsored me for the program, the
Mhm.
organization hasn't developed an internal coaching policy, sort of, where we have internal coaches to do coaching in-house. In fact, I'm yet to have been tasked to develop something like that for the organization, which is still work in progress. So
Mhm.
it is kind of you don't know where you are when it comes to the organization. Are you a coach within the organization, or are you expected to practice outside the organization? Although they finance your training, it wasn't too formalized, it wasn't too structured. So you kind
Mhm.
of hang in there whilst seeing what you can do to change the narrative. So
Okay.
I would say it is interesting, not challenging, but interesting.
Okay. All right. So since you mentioned challenges, right, and you said that you're not necessarily an internal coach,
Hmm.
um, what are some of the challenges of having a full-time job and a full-time coaching career?
Okay, so interesting question. The first thing is the time constraint, because as I work in this institution, I'm not here as a coach. My full-time work is to manage the unit in which I'm responsible for. So I'm not here as a coach. So that is the first thing. So in order for you to one keep up to date with the community of coaches, and then with your credentials and things, you need to make space around your normal 8 to 5 working hours in order for you to coach. So that is where the time constraints come in. You are only limited to after work hours, weekends, or if it is a kind of a training, you need to request for leave so that you can go and do your work, because outside business interest is also one of the things. And of course, ethically, you cannot use the bank hours to do your private coaching. So
Mhm.
that's the situation in which I find myself. Time constraints is very, very, very critical in the kind of space that I find myself. You need to balance a couple of things, and if you are not careful, you'll be overstressed because of these things. The other one is, although they recognize that yes, you are a credential coach and they will really will want your service, but it appears that you didn't come in as a coach, and people see you in a different way, because these are your colleagues that you've been with for the past, let's say, 15 years. Then all of a sudden he comes back and say he's a coach, and then he's coming to coach you. You see, the Bible is even clear on that in Matthew 13 somewhere, that a prophet is not without honor except for his country. So they see
Mhm.
you walking around, then you come back as a coach and you want to coach them. So it's
Mhm.
quite difficult. And especially you need to be very tactful where you pick your clients within the organization to coach. Yeah. So these
Mhm.
two are the main challenges that are affecting some of us who are in the corporate environment, doing full corporate work and balancing the coaching as well.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. 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 Yeah, that does make a lot of sense actually. Again, like you said, especially for those of us who are not recognized as coaches initially, right? So touching on that part, the business relational aspect of it, what's one thing that coaches who are juggling the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5, together with, their coaching careers, what are a couple of things that they can do to address that, I guess, would you call it a misconception or a lack of understanding or,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
change in
yeah.
perception?
Well,
Mhm.
yeah. For me also, I think that is a field that we need to bring ourselves up to it because coaching in Ghana is quite young. We are now developing the business in Ghana, so many people may not really be aware, and many people may not even know the difference between coaching and then the consulting and then the counseling and other things. So it is an opportunity for us to also step up our game and then make our trade very known to the people around us. So in the typical corporate world, as I speak about, then the responsibility is on us to create that awareness and that
Mhm.
demand for coaches. And it is through our work that will do this. So for instance, for myself, I have a number of people who come to me, albeit unofficially. So let's say, for instance, where I sit, I have a connection with the business leaders, and I've limited myself specifically to performance improvement coaching in the organization. So there's a network with the business leaders so that all the staff who are having performance issues, then they can bring them to me for coaching. So imagine that you are able to succeed and these coaches are able to improve on their work, then of course we are selling the brand of coaching to the organization. So although you are here as a coach, but you didn't come in as a coach, then the responsibility will lie on us to create that awareness and to create that demand so that our
Mhm.
employers, though knows that we came in a different jacket, but now wearing coach, will find reasons to recognize us as coach and then recognize others who are also outside and possibly create a department for internal coaches. Who knows? So I see it as a challenge that some of us who are within the corporate institutions will need to step up and then create this awareness and then business within the organizations. Because usually when you are outside the organization and they are consulting or coming for you, they can't, there's little that you can do. But if you are within the organization, and of course they are not paying, those who
Mhm.
come to me are not paying because in the first place, as I mentioned, I was sponsored by the organization. So it would be wrong on my part to also charge if the same organization staff are coming to me. So it is something that we can leverage on and create that awareness within the organization so that it will create that business climate and then awareness for coaching as a business in the country overall. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Okay, that's a really good point. So leveraging that position you have to advocate for coaching and to promote it. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, you also talked about time constraints, right?
Mhm.
Being part
Yeah.
of the challenge because full-time job, full-time coaching, finding that balance. And then, of course, if you're not a single person, you've got a family to also
Yes.
worry about now.
Mhm.
Right? So how do you how do you personally, Frank, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the recommendations you have for
Okay.
your fellow coaches. How do you manage that balance? Is there a balance?
Yeah, there should definitely be a balance, and time
Mm,
constraint is a critical thing that you need to always look at because as some of my colleagues on the platform who have been in the bank will attest the pressure can be a bit steep. So with this pressure to satisfy clients and then adding coaching as well is quite challenging. Yeah. And
Mhm.
most often, so for external clients, and of course, you realize in my introduction, I mentioned the kind of industries that I have been, and that
Yeah.
has helped me create a certain pool, a certain base of network that I can easily tap onto and then advertise my coaching skills and things, business to them. But I'm unable to do so because of the time constraints. And usually, people always operate between the 8 to 5 hours in a day. Very few
Yep.
people are now flexible. Even until COVID, we're not doing much of virtual coaching. It has always been on physical, in-person one. So I am careful as to who I bring on board
Mm.
onto my plate for coaching. Yes, I would say that I usually use the weekends mostly
Okay.
because during the weekdays, you are usually tired to do this. And of course, it would be unfair to your coachee if you come in tired at the end of the day,
Mm.
let's say 7 p.m. when you're already drained. It would be unfair to your coachee, especially if they are paying. So I usually use the weekends, then
Mhm.
schedule it over the weekend, the Saturday, Sunday, at a time that I am quite free. Most often Sunday after work, then that is because Saturday, Ghana and our funerals, we usually have to have to be there at the funerals, else you incur the wrath of a friend or a relative. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Sundays mainly, but that has limited the kind of external clientele that I bring on board because of the
Mhm.
time constraints. Yeah. It's usually at one at a go at a time, or if there's a group coaching for some organizations, they come on Saturday, then you go there and we have that group coaching session,
Mm.
then they move on the next week as well. But it's limited because you can't bring a lot because of time constraints. But
Mhm.
having said that, the organization also has a big pool of people that you can also coach. Albeit that one you can't do it with charges, but at least it will help build
Right.
your hours and then build your
Mhm.
experience and on your way to getting your credentials and things like that. So it's a balancing act. You may not get the opportunity to make the money outside because you may not get the clients from coming in to pay, but you will get a number of people who are ready to be coached within the organization. But the money too will not come in there. So it's a balancing
Mhm.
act that you need to balance for you to survive, right?
Right. Okay. Okay. Um, Now going backwards a little bit, I'm curious about your mindset when you decided that, okay, I'm going to do this coaching full time as well as working my full-time job. What was your
Mhm.
mindset going into it, and what did you expect from it?
Okay. Okay, so initially, when I had the conversation with, I see Doreen is on the call, Doreen and Co. and Ivy and Co. The the thinking wasn't to that's Doreen. Yes, and Doreen, I owe you the lunch. I've not forgotten. Yes, I still owe you the lunch.
It has to be with red wine, Frank. It's been a while.
I hear you. Yeah, so
Mhm.
when I had that conversation with them, the objective wasn't to be in the corporate environment to do the coaching. Actually, my objective was to start small and build myself to possibly when I am out of this space. So
Mhm.
it wasn't meant to be within the organization, but to be outside because I always want to keep my options open. If you
Mhm.
realize my introduction, I have so many, I would say, qualifications, sort of. So I always want to keep my options open so that whilst here, I'm thinking of the next 5, 10 years on what I should be
Mhm.
doing. So that was the thinking that I went into coaching with. But when I went in, and of course, when the organization also paid for it, then I realized that it is bigger than what I thought. So I need to find a way to balance the two. Whilst here, unless I decide to resign, if I decide to resign, then that is it. But if not, then I need to find a way to balance the two so that I can get the best out of both worlds. So currently, it's an open mind. I'm still open to ideas. I'm learning a lot from both sides. And I think that at the time that I'm ready to step out, I'll become a better person myself because having learned from both within the corporate and then external one, I will know how to position my business. Unfortunately, I can't share with you because you are all potential competitors. So I
Fair
can't share
enough.
that. I can't share the model with you now, but at least I'm getting a lot of ideas because of the unique positioning which I find myself, and
Okay.
that's beautiful for me. And I always open my mind for new learning, so I'm learning a lot.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay, good. And it's, that's interesting because then that helps me with the next part of our conversation, which is the benefits, right? We always talk about, oh, the challenges around, doing both sides. Apart from learning, what other benefits are there in holding down a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and a coaching career at the same time?
Okay, so I think I mentioned one already, which is the having a pool of people who you can easily coach. And that one is
Mhm.
through no effort. So with this pool of people, you can easily get your hours. Trust me, if I want to get over 100 hours with this, I can easily get it because in that case too, it's not like you are doing out of business or outside business thing. You are still
Mhm.
coaching the bank staff, so you can do that within the working hours, and nobody will find fault with it. So you have that access of pool of people that you can easily coach, irrespective of whether it is formally recognized or not. You get it? So
Okay,
if it
yeah.
is not formally recognized, once they finance your training, then they are committed in a way, but then they expect you to also help them in a way. So
Yep.
that pool is there easily for you. Then the other
Mhm.
one, that one will depend on your organization as well. So for me, I'm privileged to be in an organization that also pay my annual subscriptions. So at the end of the year, once it is off, all I need to do is to submit the invoice or I pay it and then submit the receipt for refund because, of course, I'm also helping the employees as well. So these two, and then the third one may be availability of resources. You have a whole pool of resources that you can always fall on if you are alone, maybe getting to talk to somebody may be quite difficult. But in the
Mhm.
corporate setting, I can easily walk to my chief executive, Kwamina, and then have a conversation with him. I can easily walk to our L&D, Akofa, or our head of people and culture, Sami, and then bounce ideas with them. And in fact,
Mhm.
let me also add that I just completed my master's in organizational psychology. And of course, guess where I use for my research is the same organization. So it was as
Okay.
easy as telling the head of people and culture that I want to do a research on ABC, on coaching in the
Mhm.
branches. So with your permission, I will need a certain kind of samples or managers within the branches to answer a few questions. And it was easily given. So if
Mm.
you're outside, imagine the more it will be more difficult for you when you are outside, but within the organization, it's easy. And if you are a lover of research, you can always tap on that easily available subjects, or I would say segments of whichever way to do your research and
Mhm.
gain your knowledge. So it's not that bad. There are positives and there are great positives. But it's just
Yeah.
that the other side too may also be, but I've not experienced that fully. But I'm enjoying it for now until I decide to step of the corporate world.
Okay, that's I never actually thought about those as benefits, access to resources which you otherwise wouldn't have if you're an individual, on your own. The funding as well in terms of, the education's paid for, subscriptions are paid for, that sort of thing, and then access to the clients, especially because we as coaches, if you're working for your credential, those hours are very, very, very important.
Yeah.
Um, so then comes my next question. How do you manage that temptation to focus on or dedicate yourself more to one aspect versus the other? One more to your 8 to 5 versus your coaching, or more to your coaching than
Mm.
your 8 to 5? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so it's a temptation that you need to, of course, find a way to run from, to flee
Mhm.
from that temptation, because if you're not careful, it will put you in trouble. And
Right.
in the organization, integrity is very key for every financial institution. Very,
Okay.
very key. And at the beginning of every year, you need to sign an outside business interest and declare whatever interest you have outside, and then make sure that whatever you do, you don't use organizations' resources for your personal gains. Yes,
Mm,
and even because of this specific one, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a pharmacist by profession. I have my certificate and everything, but I decided years ago not to use that certificate for business, because I could easily use it to register for a pharmacy in the community and make more money from it
mhm,
without maybe stepping there or going there over the weekend. But the point is that how much is enough? How much do you really
mm,
want in life? Mhm. So I'm actually content with what I'm giving in my full-time employment.
mhm,
The salary is enough for me. If I'm able to do the outside hours, working hours, maybe during the weekday outside or weekends, and I get something small in addition,
mhm,
I'm happy with it. If you allow that love for money to come
mhm,
in, then you'll be forced to cut corners. You'll be forced to use the organization's resources and time. You'll be forced to schedule a private coaching session within organization, within the working hours in the organization.
mm,
And I'm sure by almost at a point in time you will be caught,
mm,
because
mm.
nothing can be hidden forever. You don't know what may happen. So as much as
Yeah.
possible, I have decided that I should be content with what is coming in. Anytime I'm not
Mm.
happy, then that will be the time for me to step out of the organization, for me to really practice my craft of coaching.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's wow. That's actually very good. And it touches on, right? Yes, exactly. Doreen says that I've decided to be content. That's instructive, very much so. Um, as an ICF coach, right, that touches on our ethics because we are called to be ethical in our
Yeah,
practice, whether
yeah.
directly or indirectly. Now, you talked about scheduling private sessions during work hours. Fortunately, you're coaching internally, right? How do
Hmm.
you manage that scheduling with all the tasks you have to do?
You mentioned scheduling private sessions within working hours. No,
No, the
there's
internal scheduling
yeah.
as well as the private one.
Okay, yeah. So the private ones are outside working
Mhm,
hours, usually
mhm.
like after 5 p.m.
Okay.
Like this. Trust me, if you were to be having this conversation at 4 p.m., I would have had to seek for approval before having this time spent on this, which is of course outside my specific work at the office. But for the internal ones, it's quite easy because the organization sees it as part of the work.
Okay.
Yes, because if I'm sitting here and you refer a staff at one of the branches, and I've been doing that quite often to me in the office for coaching, it's still the staff of the organization. So they don't see it as outside business interest because it is to a staff. And in fact, at the end of the year, Akofa, our head of L&D, demands a report that after supporting you for this program, how many people or what has been the benefit to the organization. And I send a report to her that this and this and this and this and this. Yeah. Even with my research that I did, I'm sending a report of that research findings to the organization so that together we see how we can formulate a policy around internal coaching in the organization. So those ones shouldn't be a problem because it's part of learning and it's part of organizational development. It is the external ones that are problems if you are able to, or if you schedule it within the working hours. That is why there are so few on my plate for now. I don't take so many of them to cause that problem for me. No.
Okay, Frank, you're hitting on those competencies, transparency. I like it. So then for the coaches who don't have the convenience, either because they're not interested in internal coaching or, they just haven't considered it, whatever the case may be, what's the best way to manage both without burning out or getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, the coaching process, you may think standing outside, you may think that it is that simple, but it needs a lot of concentration. Our coaching presence demands that you be present in the coaching engagement, and that takes a lot of effort, not muscle effort, but mental effort. So if you are not careful, you will end up with mental exhaustion and be easily broken down because your immune systems may be affected. And that is why it is important that as coaches, self-care is very, very important or should be important in your tool bag. Because if you are doing so, then you are not helping your coachee or your clients. Because if they are paying, especially, you have to, even if not paying, once you agree to have that session with them, then you should be present and give out your best. So it would be wrong and unethical for you to go into a coaching session when you are not your best in terms of you don't feel correct, you don't feel right. And it would be wrong also to repeatedly postpone or cancel your coaching engagement, what you have agreed with your clients. So that is the reason why, as much as possible, I don't take many external clients, at least one at a time. But even with that one, because like this end of this year or getting to end of year and beginning of the year, there is a lot of strategy sessions and other things. Yeah, for the past 1 week, we were out of town on one strategy session somewhere. And once you anticipate and you look ahead and see that your time may not be predictable, then you stay off such engagement so that once you agree that you want to take on this client, then your body and soul and your focus is on it so that you can give your maximum best. Because anytime that you engage a coachee, have it in mind that it is not you they are assessing you, they are assessing the organization, that has also given you a credential, and they are assessing all the process as well. At the end of the day, the person will go out with that impression that, oh,
Mm,
okay, this person is a good coach. Oh, ICF is a good brand. Next time I'll be looking out for an ICF credential coach or ICF member
mm,
coach and things like that. So it is very unfair if you go into such engagements that you are not on top of yourself. Very, very unfair. So I
mhm,
do not take in a lot of people. And there are a
mhm,
number of people I see Eunice are not here that we've been always been discussing about taking on a training project on coaching as well, and it is part of the plan. And in that case,
mhm.
I would need to take a leave, need to book my leave days around that time so that I
Okay.
can comfortably step out of the office and then go and have such a training program. So that is
Okay.
how I manage it ahead. So I avoid burnout. Anytime I feel overwhelmed, I pick
Mhm.
my bag and then away to a coded location. That's coffee. Coffee always worries about it. Go to a coded location and go and re-energize yourself and refresh, and then come back. At least one
Yeah.
weekend is able to refresh the son of man,
Mm.
and that is beautiful for me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, what are some of the signs of potential burnout? Because we as coaches, I think a lot of us tend to think we are invincible, or okay, maybe a 10-minute break or something is enough. And we feel an obligation sometimes to take care of our clients and prioritize our clients over our well-being. What are some of the signs of burnout that you noticed which tell you I need to take a break?
Hmm. Yeah, man, this is specific to the individual, but for me, if I'm doing something and I don't see the passion in it, then it is a feedback to me that I should step aside.
Mhm.
So that is the gauge for me because it is something that I love, and Doreen will attest to that fact. When we have the conversation, Doreen knows me and knows how I love talking and engaging. Yes,
Mm,
so anytime I don't feel energized
mm,
to have that engagement, then I have to step back and ask myself what is going on. Then it means that
mm.
I may be getting tired.
Yeah.
So I need to pause and go and refresh
Okay.
and
Okay.
re-energize. Yeah, so that is for me. There are others too who have various uh, signs that prompts them about possible burnout, and it depends on the
Mhm.
individual. But if for
Okay.
me, if I don't heed to this and I continue, then malaria will come. Malaria has been
Mm.
my number one signal that I'm burning out because I'm sure the immune system breaks down and then malaria comes in. Yeah, the
Right.
few times that I didn't, but nowadays I've learned from those experiences and I try to
Mhm.
always pause and stop when I don't feel passionate about engaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's true. And Doreen is right. She made a comment in there that you found your ministry. I agree. And everyone who is here, please, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat or raise your hand so you can ask Frank. He has been doing this. Frank is a champion when it comes to multitasking in terms of coaching and the 8 to 5, finding that balance, as you can hear. Frank, now, a lot of coaches, right, feel like they're 9 to 5 sometimes. At least for me, I know that at one point I felt my 9 to 5 was just a transition, and that eventually I would do the full-time coaching. Does that always have to be the case?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Hmm.
I think that as the coaching business evolves in
Hmm.
the country, gradually everybody will find his or her niche somewhere along the spectrum that will be satisfied with, because it's a very big and a very broad profession that I wonder if it will be saturated. It's unlike the accountants that follow a specific thing. But coaching, you can always create something and create your niche somewhere and say you are coach in this area, and you get your market. So I'm sure that currently the thinking is for you to be outside the organization so that they can take you on and you come in, do your executive or leadership coaching or whatever coaching, and you go out. Yes, that is good. But with times, there are some people who will want to be within the organization. I wonder how many organizations in country have internal coaches.
Hmm.
I really, really, really wonder. And if you remember during our launch, Dumi mentioned that the area of growth is the manager coach. That is also another area that we can always put ourselves somewhere there that, okay, for me, I want to specialize in ensuring that organization now managers have that skills that they can coach their direct reports. And there are so many niches around that anyone can find his or her, her cheese, if I will put it that way, in order to be relevant in the industry. So I don't think there should be a problem. As the environment evolve, as the number of coaches increases, we will all move from that kind of focus on executive leadership coaches to other areas. I know there are some
Yeah.
transitional coaches, there are also life coaches around and things like that. Ghana, we are yet to appreciate some of those things. The market for life coaching is a bit small as compared to executive and then leadership coaching. So many of us are gravitating towards that aspect. But gradually, as the masses get to understand and appreciate the transformational effect of coaching, I'm sure we will all get our niches somewhere and be relevant in our small corner where we operate.
I like that. Be relevant in our small corners. Okay, that makes sense. Guests, please, if you're just joining us, please remember you're free to ask questions if you're trying to find that balance or you're trying to decide whether to transition or to go to a 9 to 5 and full-time coaching simultaneously. Please pop your questions into chat or raise your hands. Okay, Frank. So if a coach wants to transition, what's the best way for them to do that? To transition from doing simultaneous full-time work and full-time coaching into just coaching?
No, please, I didn't get the last correctly. If you can come again.
Yeah,
Just
sorry. I was saying, if a coach wants to transition from doing both full-time work, the corporate job, as well as the full-time coaching, if they want to transition just to solely coaching, what would you recommend?
okay. So I know many of us coaches are on full-time coaching out of the organization. So those of us who are within organization, that is where the challenge is for us. If you ask my opinion, I think that once within the organization, you need to take advantage of the benefits that you get as much as possible. And when I'm saying the advantage, that means that the pool of potential coaches, because it is by no accident that ICF allocates that if you are above this number of hours, you get this credential. If you're above this number of hours, you get this credential. Because of the nature of the profession we find ourselves, it is like the medical, it is like the pilot. If you fly more hours, then you get more experience. So the nature of it is said that the more people you coach, the more experienced you become as a coach. So if you are in the organization, you need to take advantage of the potential coaches that you have.
Mhm.
And the more you coach, the better you become at your coaching skills. Then that one will become easier for you when you step out because
Mhm.
you'll be that experienced coach because of the number of hours under your belt. It is
Mhm.
easy for you to move into PCC or even MCC, depending on the number of years you spend there.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
next option too is once you are within the environment, the corporate environment, you need to make sure people appreciate. You need to make sure people know what kind of stuff you are made of. Because these
Mhm.
guys will be the potential referral for you. Because once you step out there, you may not know that many people who knows you and therefore can refer. But assuming that you're an organization and you are able to make an impact, transformational impact in the working life or professional life of the staff, then it will be easy for every staff that you touch with a potential referral. And the organization itself is also a potential referral. So once you are within it, you should make sure that your work speaks for itself so that when you transition out, then of course it will be easy for you to come back to them for them to refer you. Because I know outside there is not that simple or that easy for you getting clients who will pay. So it is important that you take advantage of all these opportunities so that once you step out, you'll be clear in what you are going to do. The other aspect I also want to touch on is usually there's this thinking that once I'm a coach, I should be open to all aspects of coaching. So that because at that point, no small money is you shouldn't let small monies fly by. So whether it is life coaching, you jump onto it. Whether it's business coaching, you jump onto it. SME coaching, whatever coaching, then it is important that you build your brand in a specific area that aligns with your strengths and your weaknesses. That will make it easier for you to market yourself and be known within the environment or the industry in which you are. So it is easier for you to position that way, that this is who you are and what you can do, instead of becoming a jack of all trades. Maybe initially the money may not come as frequently or as big as you want, but with time, once you become known within the organization, I think that gradually Ghana, as we develop the business, each one of us will become known for a specific thing. So that if, let's say, Doreen encounters somebody who needs a coach in this specific area, she can easily refer to some AIM that, oh, in this case, go to this person. Because by
Yeah.
then, Doreen will have a lot of clients on her plate that she will not be interested in
Right.
the other ones that come. So that is what I think. You need
Okay.
to focus on the specific area that you want so that by the time you leave the corporate environment, you'll be known for something. Then that can push you up. That's my
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. That's very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Frank. Audience, please. I haven't seen any questions. Am I safe to assume then that Frank has been answering all the questions that everyone has? If not, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. Okay. All right. Well, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and give some tips and tricks to those of us who are learning to find that balance or deciding I quit. I want to do this full time, you know. It's been very helpful. We've got about 4 minutes left. Do you have any words that you want to wrap up with?
What I want to say, because we are all coaches or we are all interested in
Mhm.
coaching, and what I want to say is that our profession is a calling, as I
Mhm.
mentioned some time ago. Yes, in such professions that touches on people's mindset, we need to be very special about. We need to be very deliberate about how we operate. So I will
Mhm.
encourage all of us that since we are called into this uh,
Mhm.
ministry, as Doreen will want to say it, let's take it upon ourselves to be professional about it.
Mhm.
I'm always a person who always wants to read and to learn because we launched the ICF this year. The responsibility is on us to grow the brand and the business in the country, and we
Mhm.
dare not fail. And for us to achieve that, anytime you step up, be it speaking engagement, be it one-on-one coaching, be it team coaching, know that you are being assessed and you are being evaluated by your audience. So at the end of the
Mhm.
day, they should come out with a positive image about you yourself and about the brand that we represent. And I think
Mhm.
it's also important to add that let's try to develop expertise in specific areas so that all of us will not be doing the same thing across. There's
Mhm.
a big market for all of us, and I'm sure we can all find our keys of fulfillment in them. That is what
Mhm.
I want
That's
to end.
great.
Mm.
That's great. That's really great. Okay, so all right. We've got a question in the chat. In 30 seconds or less, if you can you answer the question, when do people find value in coaching and how do you make them understand the experience they'll go through? Let's say 30 seconds
Mm. When do people find value?
in
I think
coaching.
that it is the coaches who will determine whether they have found value in your work. And that one
Mhm.
shows the way they then relate with you. In the organization that I am and I coach, now I remember there was a time that a branch manager referred a client, or yes, I would say a client, but a
Mhm.
staff to me. The staff was getting frustrated because she's been on a non-perm role for a number of years, and it was getting to her. I think what Doreen would say, SSB, self-sabotage behavior. Yes. And it was getting to her, and she
Mhm.
needed performance was coming down and things like that. And I remember having sessions with this person, and I went to the branch some time ago, and I think it was like a standing ovation for me. And I was shocked. And I was asking them, what is going on here? Apparently, the lady had been confirmed as a permanent staff, and she just couldn't stop talking about the transformative experience that she had with
Mhm.
our engagement. So,
Mhm.
people finding value in coaching is how it impacts on their personal and professional lives. And unfortunately
Gotcha.
for us, they are the ones who determine whether there was value or not. It's not us.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
are the ones to mark us if they think that we are impacting on their lives, and it is
Mhm.
not us. That is why the coaching model focuses on the coachee and not you, the coach. And it is
Mhm.
important we stick to that so that at the end of the day, then the coachee will find that value. Other than that, we cannot measure that value from where we sit. And it's important
Okay.
we get that straight.
That's amazing. Very great insights. Thank you, Frank. You have shown why you are the expert coach. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the questions, everyone, and for
You,
joining us. We will hear one word from our president, and then we will wrap up our session. Thank you again, Frank.
thank you.
Mr. President.